everybody. So today I want to actually walk you guys through how to put a camera in, also how to get started with your lighting and the settings that you guys will need to set in order to do your final rendering. So I'm going to start with the camera. So if you guys go to your Create tab and you guys go to the second bar, go over to your fourth icon. This is where you guys will choose which camera you want to choose. So you guys will see that you have a couple different options that you can use. You have your physical camera, which is going to pick up all of the physical attributes within your model space. You guys also have the target camera, which is very similar to the physical. It's just you get to choose what your camera is targeting at. And you guys also have the free camera, which literally just drops a camera within your model space, and you guys have to use your move tool, your rotate tool to kind of change what that camera view is looking at. So for the purpose of our final project, you guys will only need to use the physical camera. That will give you guys the result that you want. So the first thing you want to do is select the physical camera. Once you guys select it, you will see that your control panel, your command panel changes. So you guys have your parameters that appear. So the first thing you guys are going to want to do after you select your physical camera is go to your top view. You want to make sure that it's activated. You know it's activated by the yellow highlight around it. If you're not in that view, you can just right click and that will allow you guys to get within that view without doing anything crazy. So once I'm in there, I'm just going to click once and hold on my left key. Once I click and hold and I start to pull away from that spot, you guys will see that that camera has now been placed. And then you just want to span that out until you get to your desired distance away from the camera. And once you get there, you just want to release off your left key, and that has now placed that camera within your model space. So in order to see what that camera view looks like, what you're actually looking at, you can go to your perspective view. And again, I'm just going to right click in my perspective view to activate it. It's activated. I see my yellow highlight around it. I'm going to click on perspective. I'm going to go to cameras and go to physical camera 1. I only have one camera within my space, so I know for sure that that's the one I want to go to. I'm going to click on it, and that shows me that I'm looking at my camera view. Now when I'm looking at this, it's a little low for my taste. You guys can use your move tool to either start to move your camera up while still selected, or you guys can just move how you would normally navigate within your space. So all I'm going to do right now is just hold down the middle part of my mouse and move myself up a little bit within that space. And as I'm moving, you guys will see in your other views that that camera is also moving. So you can just move as normal to place that camera where you want it. A couple things to pay attention to on your command panel is you guys want your camera to be targeted, so you want to make sure that this is checked. You also have the option to change what preset your physical camera is under. So if I click down on the options I have here, I can start to change the brand of my camera. So right now I'm at 35mm, which is normally going to be good for you. You can just leave it there. You don't have to change it. But if you do have a preference to kind of see what that looks like outside of the 35mm, you can play around with that. So as I start to change those options, you guys will see in my camera view there that my scene starts to change a little bit. So you guys can play around with that. You can also change it underneath the width. So right now I'm under 35mm. If I start to change that view or change the size in millimeter, you guys will see that that also starts to kind of zoom in that field of view and zoom it out. So you guys can choose pretty much whatever makes you guys happy on that front whatever you guys actually choose to want to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and take mine back to the 35 millimeter. That one will be just fine for what you guys are doing. And if you're once you put in another camera, if you do find that you need to see something outside of the borders within that frame, just mess around with your width. You guys can also, underneath lens, you guys can mess around with your focal length here, and that will pretty much do the same thing. So it's pretty much up to you guys on what you want to do here, but the 35 millimeter should be just fine. The next thing I want to talk about is putting in your daylighting system. So we put in the daylighting system just so it makes your final images a lot more photorealistic. And so since we're going to be using the mental ray, we want to make sure that we put the daylighting system in, as well as any artificial lights that you want to put within your space. So I'm going to show you guys two different light options that you guys have. Your daylighting system, which will be first, will be more of the natural light that you guys want in your scene, and then the other lighting that I'm going to show you guys is going to be more the artificial lights. So lights that are coming from, you know, any lamps that you have within your space. And you guys can also, if you find that your scene is still not giving you enough light, once you put those things in, you guys can also choose like an Omni light or something like that to put within your scene to brighten it up. So again, this is kind of going to be preference, but I will show you guys where to find the different lighting options that you want. Before we start to mess around with your daylighting system, you guys do have a window within your final project. So you just want to make sure that you go ahead and put the material on your window and make sure that it already has the glass in it, so that you guys can see how that light is shining through when you put your daylighting system in. So in order to do that, I'm just going to go to my material editor. What I want to do here is go ahead and create a multi-sub material. So multi-sub object. So I'm just going to select that, drag it to my space that I have here. Once I have it drugged there, you guys will see that you have numbers. I know for sure that number 3 is going to be the glass on the window. So all I really care about is making sure that whatever material I apply to number 3 will be the see-through material. And then once I have that figured out, I can just grab whatever other material I want and apply that to all the remaining numbers. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is grab me a standard material. This is going to be my glass. So what I want to do is just double click on that, the name of that material. Once I have it up, you guys will see that those parameters appear. What I'm looking for is the opacity, and I want to take the opacity to 0. Once I have that set at 0, I'm going to go ahead and take that material to number 3. The next thing I want to do is grab whatever other material I want to use for the frame. So for the purpose of example, I'm just going to do another standard material. But remember, you guys can choose any material that you want. You can choose one of the pre-materials that are already in 3D Max, or you guys can create your own. So I'm going to go ahead and do this another standard. I'm going to double click on that material again, and I'm just going to choose a random color here. Let's just do a green for this one and press OK, and I'm going to take that material again to all of the remaining numbers. Okay, so now I've made that material, and I'm going to go ahead and apply it in my scene. Remember, when you guys are applying the material, all you have to do is take that right circle, selected, once you have it highlighted yellow, you will see that your red rope that comes from it, and you just want to drag it to your scene and drop it on whatever object you're trying to apply that material to. So I've applied that material to my window. We know that it's applied because now I see that green frame that I've created. I also see in my glass that it's actually see-through there, so I'm good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of my material editor, and this scene is now ready for me to go ahead and apply my daylighting system. Alright, so what I want to do is go ahead and go back to that create tab. So we're in our create here. Remember to click out of your camera too, so it makes it a little bit easier to see. So I just escaped out. So I'm in my create tab, and what I'm going to do is, instead of going to lights to find my daylighting system, it's actually going to be under system. So it's going to be that last icon that you guys have on your second bar there. So I'm just going to click there. Once I click there, you guys will see one that says daylight. This is the one that you want to choose. Right, so I'm going to select daylight, and from here I want to again work in my top view because it's a little bit easier to see. So all I want to do now is click and hold. Once I click and hold, you guys will see a compass that appears. You just want to make that the round about the size of your room there. Once you have that around the size of your room, you want to release off your mouse, and then you guys will see something that kind of looks like a circle. It doesn't really matter how far you span that out. You just want to click a second time to place that lighting system. So I'm going to click my second time, and it places it within my model space. So you guys will see in my top view it's there. If I go down to my left view, you guys will see that it's kind of hovering over my room there, which is exactly what I want. One other thing I want you guys to notice is that once I place that daylighting system, you guys will see in my camera view here that has really brightened up that space, right? So that's a lot of light that we have happening right now, and I will show you guys how to adjust that here in a minute. The most important thing to do with your daylighting system is, right now that's just kind of placed above my space here. What I want that to do is actually go right through the window that I have in my model. So right now my window is over in this space here. So I just want to use my move tool to move that daylighting system so that it's somewhere around here and it's looking right through that that window for me. So I'm going to get my select tool just to make sure I don't do anything crazy. It's already selected for me. If you clicked out of it, just click on that weird circle that you have there. Get your move tool, and all I'm going to do is start to move. Sorry, you actually need to change one thing. Sorry. So you just want to select that daylighting system, go to modify, and you guys will see that you have your parameters that are up here. It won't allow us to change the position of that daylighting system if we have date, time, and location selected in our position option. So we just want to switch that to manual before we're able to move that daylighting system. So I'm just going to select the manual here, go back to move, and continue with what I was doing. So I'm going to go ahead and start to move that daylighting system so that it's looking through that window. Okay, so if you guys look here, that the kind of the point or the rope in between my compass and my, like, the sun in the sky is kind of what that signifies. You guys will see if I zoom in that that line goes right through the window. That's what you guys want to see. Okay, the other thing that you guys want to pay attention to, and I want you guys to look at what's happening in my scene over here as I start to change this position of the sun either up or down. That will tell me how what the time of day is. So obviously if that sun is lower, that means that it's more in the morning or in the evening, or the more I start to rise that sun up, that means that it's more towards the noon. But you guys will see your shadows if you're looking in my perspective view there. It starts to change as I start to move that sun up or down. So again, this one's going to be preference on where you want that sun to be. It really doesn't matter. The only important thing is making sure that that daylighting system is going through that window. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and leave mine's here. I think that works for me, but you guys go ahead and place yours, the height of it, wherever you want to place that. Okay, all right, so now that I have that daylighting system in there, I'm going to go ahead and look at my parameters here, and there's a couple things that you have to pay attention to in your parameters here. The first thing is you want to make sure that your sunlight and your skylight are both checked active. Okay. The next thing you want to do is click down on your options here, and you want to make sure that it says MR Sun, which stands for Mental Ray Sun, and that's because we're rendering in Mental Ray. So we want to make sure that the mental rays are selected. We also want to do the same thing for our skylight. So I'm just going to click down on that option, go to Mental Ray Sky, and select that one. And that works out perfect. So I have both of those selected. We've already changed the position to manual, so we're good there. The next thing I want you guys to pay attention to is underneath MR Sun basic parameters, which is here. And then if you go down a couple notches, you have MR Sky parameters. I want you guys to pay attention to your multiplier here. This is going to determine how much light is coming from that light source. Okay, so normally the rule of thumb is you want to try to stay as close to 1 as possible with all of those values added up. So right now, because I have 1 underneath my sun and I have 1 underneath my sky, 1 plus 1 equals 2. So I'm at 2. So I'm way above that 1 that I'm trying to aim for. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually take that multiplier to 0.02. And as I start to change that, you guys will notice that the scene starts to change a little bit too. So I'm going to go ahead and change the sky now to 0.02 and enter. And so what this is doing now is you guys will see that it's kind of evened out. The light within my space is not washed out, and you guys will start to see some really nice shadows happening, some really nice light highlights, which is what you guys want to see. Okay, so I would say a really safe number is to start with the 0.02 for both of those and kind of see what that looks like. So I think we're good there. So that's what we want to do for our daylighting system. The next thing I want to show you guys is if you want to add any artificial light to your space. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go back to my Create tab. I'm going to click out of my daylighting system. And this time I'm actually going to go to Lights, which is going to be that third icon on the second row. Once I go to light, I'm going to go ahead and click down on the options where I see photometric, and I'm going to go to standard. Once I go to standard, you guys have a lot of different options that you can use. You guys can choose a target spotlight, which is it's just kind of basic lights that you guys can use. So if I was to use the target spotlight, I would select that. And I would click once to place it, and then place and hold, and then release when I get that light where I want it. And so you guys will see that kind of washed out my space, so that's probably not the one I want to put within my model. And because I'm not trying to target at anything within my space, it's not really important that I have a target light. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one out. But go ahead and read through. You guys have a chapter in your book for this class that talks about how to place the different lights, and it goes through each of the different options that you guys have here. So definitely go and read about the different options that you have, and that will kind of tell you guys which ones you might want to use, but what I'm going to show you now will be sufficient enough for your final project. But definitely do your research, definitely go and read those chapters, and that will give you guys a little bit more explanation on the different options. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to the one that you guys are probably going to be using the most of, which is going to be your MR area Omni. Now this one's going to be very similar to what you guys saw in Revit, where you had your studio light. So it's one that will spread kind of artificial light throughout your space. If it's a little too dark, once you guys start to go and render and your daylighting system is not enough, you guys can place maybe just one MR area Omni light within your space. Or you guys can, if you have lamps within your space, so I have a couple lamps here and I want lights to light to come from those lamps, I can place an MR Omni light, or I can just place a normal Omni light. Both of those are the same thing. They will give you guys the same result. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the MR area Omni, and I'm going to place that right here within my lamp. So I'm going to place it, but I'm going to have to move it up and stuff to kind of get it right. So once I have it in there, I'm going to go to my front view here because it's kind of easier to see, and I'm just going to move that up so that it's underneath that shade. Okay. Alright, so I've placed that within my space. It's there. You guys will notice that it's now again brightened up that space, which I don't want it to be super light. I probably just want a little bit of light to come from that lamp. So what I want to do now is go to my modify. And again, you guys will notice that your parameters have changed. The most important thing for you guys to pay attention to is underneath intensity. And you guys just want to click down on that plus sign. And right now, if you guys remember the word multiplier, which is what we were adjusting for our daylighting system, it will be the same thing for any of the other lights that you put in there. You guys can change the multiplier for it. So right now, I'm at 66.147, which is extremely far off from that one that I was telling you guys about, right? So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this, and I'm going to take that Omni light. I'm probably going to start off at 0.05, enter, and you guys will notice that now it's kind of taking that light back down in that space. So you guys will have to play around with the multiplier to get it get that light right within your space, but that will give you guys a good start. So the most important thing with your lighting is to place your daylighting system, make sure that it's going through your window, adjust your multiplier down for your daylighting system, and then if it's not enough light, then go back and start to add in maybe a Omni light within your space, and that will brighten it up a little bit more. But just make sure to go in and change the intensity underneath your multiplier to suit what works for your space. Okay, so I think that's pretty much good as far as the lighting goes. What will be sufficient for what you guys need for the final project. But again, please don't stop here. Make sure that you guys go and read about the other lighting options that you have. You guys have the book for that. It's under the lighting chapter. Make sure that you guys download that book before the quarter ends so that you guys have that for yourself. Okay. Alright, so I think that is good for the lighting. I want to now move on to the rendering and what needs to be set up for your rendering. So what you guys are going to want to do is go to that second ribbon that you guys have, and you want to go all the way over, and it's going to be the render setup button, which should be the one right after your material editor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on render setup. Okay, so I have my render set up. The first thing you want to pay attention to is what your actual renderer is. So what I'm going to want to do is go all the way down, scroll down to the bottom here, and click on assign renderer, and you just want to make sure that your production renderer says Multiplier. Okay, that's what you guys will be rendering in. So you want to make sure that's very important, that you guys have mental ray selected. It's also important when you guys start to go and apply your materials, especially if you guys want to use just like the some of the basic materials that they give you guys. You have to be in your mental ray in order to see those materials show up within your material editor. Okay, so that's the most important thing. A couple other things that you guys will want to mark for your rendering. Underneath your time output, you want to make sure that you have single selected. We're not doing any frames for your final project. It's just a still shot, so you want to make sure the single selected. The next thing, underneath area to render, you want to make sure that you have view selected. That just means that you're gonna render this full camera view here. Okay, so you guys don't need any region, you guys don't need a crop, you just need the view that's activated to render. The next thing you guys want to pay attention to is your output size. Now, there's two different ways that I want you guys to go about the output size. If you guys are not at your final rendering yet and you just want to see do test renders or draft renders into your final, you can keep it at custom, and you guys can do either 320 or 640. And so you can set it at one of these. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and keep mine at 320 for the test renders that I'm going to do. But once you guys go to do your final rendering, this will change, and I'll show you guys what that needs to change to here in a minute. But if you're just doing your draft, again, custom is fine. 320 or 640 is fine for test renderings. The next thing is your options. These will default automatically to your top 3, and that's fine. You guys don't need anything else checked underneath your options. Your advanced lighting, you guys want to make sure that use advanced lighting is selected. And then the next important thing is your render output. Please guys, make sure that you specify where you want your rendering to be saved to before you go to render. If you guys try to save your rendering after you have actually rendered it, it sometimes messes up the quality versus just having a spot that it automatically saves to once you render. So what you want to do is click on files. Once you click on files, you can pretty much save that wherever you want that to go. So desktop, I can go to desktop and I can type in what I want that to be. So if I'm doing my test, I'm just going to say test 1. I want to specify what type of format, so I'm going to take that to the JPEG. It will always be the JPEG. And then once I have that at JPEG, I'm going to hit save. And it's going to ask me what I want my image control to be. So you want that to be at best, you want your file size to be large, and you want your smoothing to be at max. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now if I go to my render output, your save file should be checked, and it should show the location on where that image is being put. Okay, and that's all you should have to do there. So this is all set up right now for a test render. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit render here in a second, but you want to make sure that you have the correct viewport selected. So you want to activate your camera viewport right now, or your perspective viewport, if you want to think about it that way. So you want to just make sure that it has the yellow highlight around that one and not one of your other 2D viewports. Okay, so mine's is already has the yellow highlight around it, so I know it's active and I'm good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit render. Okay, so that has rendered for me. This is just a test again, and I can just start to look at this and see what adjustments I need to make. Obviously, looking at this one, because I don't have any material, sometimes it's a little hard, but once you have materials in there, you'll really be able to start to really grab what needs to change. So even just looking at this, I would say to myself that it's a little bit too washed out. That means that I need to take my lighting down. So I would adjust my Omni light. I can go back in and adjust my day lighting system. Take that number down maybe to 0.01 or something like that. So again, you guys will have to go in and adjust that lighting to get it right, but your test renders will give you guys a pretty good idea of what that light's going to look like once you go to final render. So just make sure that you kind of, you know, bounce back and forth, make sure that it's the right result that you guys are getting before you go to final rendering, because that will take time to do. Okay, so once you know, see it, you've kind of looked at it to see what needs to change, you're good to go. You can go ahead and just exit out of that frame, and it should be saved where you chose to save it, so you're good to go there. Now, to do your final rendering, what you guys need to make sure that you change is your output size. So when you go to do your final rendering, you want to click down on your options and go ahead and go to 35mm full aperture. I also want to change the size. So I would say if you have the time, do 40x96. That's going to be the largest size that this one offers. But 1536 should also be pretty okay. It shouldn't give you guys any issue. So just select one of those that you want. So 35mm full aperture, 40x96. And you guys just want to go also back to where it says render output. You want to go back to files, and you want to now change that to final rendering, or whatever you want to name that, and whatever your final location is, and hit save there. And you're good on this page. And there's one more thing you guys need to do. You have to go over to the renderer tab. So right now I'm in my common tab. I want to click on where it says renderer, and I want to change my samples per pixel. Right now the minimum is at 1, and I just want to change that to 4. Okay, so that's the only thing you guys need to change on this render page. Right, so when you guys are ready to final render, make sure that those things are changed, and that should give you guys a pretty great image result when you guys finish. Okay, but again, I would not try to do this for a draft rendering, because it's going to take a pretty good amount of time. So make sure that you guys leave yourselves enough time to render at the end. Don't wait till the last minute, because your renderings will take time to render, and I'm not sure how long, but it's probably going to be some hours. So just make sure of that. So that's all. I wanted to show you guys how to set up your camera view for your final project, which we just did the physical camera. Also how to get your day lighting system within your space. That's going to be the most important thing. Making sure that it's coming through your window within your space is going to give you guys the result that you want. Also, if you guys want to add any artificial lighting within there, for you guys, it's really probably only going to be the Omni light that you guys want to add within your space. But also remember, go and read the chapter on lighting for your book for this class, and that will walk you guys through the other options that you guys have for the artificial lighting. And also for your rendering, when you guys go to render, just make sure that you do, if you're doing a draft rendering, that you set up your rendering as I talked about. And if you guys are doing, when you guys are ready to do your final renderings, just make sure that you change those 3 things that I talked about here at the end, and you guys should be ready to go. And that is all. Thank you.